The Missouri Eviction Notice. What is an eviction notice? Eviction notice, or notice to quit, is a letter sent by the landlord to the tenant notifying them that they should either take or stop a certain action or vacate the rented premises. Eviction notice can be of two types: conditional, when a tenant is given time to remedy the breach of the lease, or unconditional, when a landlord terminates the lease without any alternative options for a tenant. What should an eviction notice include? Information about the tenant and the landlord. The reason for sending the notice. The date by which the tenant should take or stop a certain action. The consequences of non-compliance. The date and way of notice delivery and the landlord's signature in the form of certificate of service attached to the notice. How to evict a tenant in Missouri. Non-payment notice. The Missouri legislature requires the landlord to wait 1 month after the rent is due before starting the eviction process regarding the tenant who fails to pay rent. If the tenant does not pay rent after this period, the landlord can skip the notice sending step and start the eviction proceeding. Non-compliance notice. If the tenant violates the lease in another manner, the landlord has to send them a 10-day notice to quit before starting the eviction process. It's up to the landlord whether to give the tenant time to correct the issue or not. If the tenant is involved in illegal activity that threatens health or safety of other tenants or landlord, or commits drug-related acts, or brings sufficient property damage in an amount exceeding 12 months' rent, no prior notice is required before termination of the contract. What if the tenant fails to comply? If the tenant fails to comply with the rules of the lease, the landlord can file a complaint with the appropriate Missouri court. The filing fee will depend on the county. For instance, in Clay County, the fee is $36.50. Then the summons and complaint are to be served on the tenant by the sheriff at least 4 days before the court hearing. The tenant's failure to appear for the hearing might result in a judgment in favor of the landlord by default. If the landlord wins the case, a writ of possession will be issued. According to such an order, the tenant who is evicted due to illegal activity has to move out within 24 hours after the document was delivered to them. For other eviction cases, the tenant is given up to 5 days to leave the premises. If the tenant continues occupying the unit after the given period, they will be forcibly removed by a law enforcement officer.